What is up, guys? We're about to go build some soil. Ezra, do you know what we're doing with this stuff?
Nope.
Turning it into soil.
Hey, grass into soil?
Oh, yes.
That's weird.
Turning it into compost. Nice.
Oops. Sorry, Bear. Hey, my hands are pretty clean. And the main thing about gardening is getting your hands dirty.
The amazing part of gardening, you said?
The main thing.
The main thing about gardening is getting your hands dirty?
Yeah. Right, Mom? My hands are pretty clean, so I guess I'm not gardening.
No, you're compost making.
So once the wheelbarrow is full...
Yeah, we need this. This is the green component for our compost.
What green component?
Well, one, you can look at it and see that it's green, but also it's just fresh and alive, so we need that.
What if I take too long?
You don't. So you can see my big epic tree is starting to get a little greenish again, a little buddy. All the oak trees started to bud and like pollen and everything, and then we had that really hard freeze. So they all turned brown and now they're starting again.
Good job.
So today we have Phil Burton here with us, whom Jeremiah calls our compost dad. And he's working with us on building some really cool compost piles. I'm going to show you guys this method.
Pile complete compost pile taught by Dr. Elaine Ingham. It's I-N-G-H-A-M.
So this is hardware cloth that we're putting these compost piles in. And look here.
Okay, so let's do
These are the ones that are complete.
Yeah, you're right.
These are completely put together, and I'm going to show you guys how we put these together. So Phil was telling me his wife, Becky, studied under Dr. Elaine Ingham. Alright guys, we're gonna hide out under the tailgate of the truck because it's super windy out here. I might have to end up doing some voiceover stuff on this. Phil's wife, Becky, studied under Dr. Elaine Ingham, and this is Dr. Ingham's signature compost pile. So there are different ways to do compost. People who have studied this, I mean, it is obviously a science, it's biology, and there's a lot of nuance that goes into it, and the goal is to have the healthiest soil possible. So we're looking for like great diversity. We're not going to just use this as compost. We're actually looking to make something that's full of life, that has a very diverse biome, that we're going to turn into compost tea, that we can then spray our pastures, that we can spray our gardens, and that we can bring that rich biology back to our soil, which ultimately is going to heal this land. So when the Burtons first came here, one of the first things they did was they went and they took some different samples in our pasture. And Phil was able to determine that based on the way the roots in our pasture were only a few inches deep and how they grew kind of off to the side, he was able to say, I would say that within the last couple years this pasture's been sprayed with Roundup, and it had. We knew that it had been sprayed with Roundup a couple years ago, so that was pretty cool. And our hope is over the next few years of organically treating this and feeding our soil, that we can see those roots go really deep and the structure of our soil be restored. All right, so we're setting up pallets and covering with this hardware cloth.
Those big round bales around the festival area.
Will has been hoping to win Bear over. So this is going to provide ventilation. We want to be able to have this airflow going underneath this compost pile. And we're creating these columns just out of hardware cloth.
Yeah, how much was the last one?
108.
Yeah, thanks a lot. All right, so we got 112 right here.
So at the pallets that we have here, they just measured 112 inches. But what Phil was saying is you want it to be about 2 inches from the sides on the pallet on each one of these. You can kind of see that here. And they were saying they had made this one a little narrow, so they're added a little bit for the next one. Do you know what the gauge is on this?
Or no, it's just what they had it tied up with it from the store.
Okay, so this is just what was tying up the bale.
Anything can work. Might use carabiners over there.
So overlap here. You know, if you stayed in there long enough, you would become compost.
I would? How?
Because our bodies break down and become soil when we die. It's morbid, huh?
Right.
You ready to get out now?
No, not yet.
That's really the perfect size for
All right. You can just spread that across hundreds of acres of land, you know, with compost teas and extracts. And, you know, they just never contemplated how we can take what everybody throws away and everybody regards as waste and turn it into actually the most valuable thing in life.
Yep.
You know, we owe our entire existence to the first 6 inches of soil.
So we're building these compost piles to be our fall compost. So we're starting these now. We're going to work on them with hopes to turn these into compost teas and fertilize our pastures this fall. And as Phil has been emphasizing the importance of life in the soil and talking about how easy these are to build, he's showing just the value that you can make one of these columns, these 1,000-pound compost piles, and you can turn these into compost tea that can fertilize acres and acres of field. And here, with just the kind of stuff that you can pretty easily get a hold of, even if you live in town, you can create fertility for your garden. And right now, one of the things he was telling me, and I just mentioned in a video recently about rising costs and prices, and fertilizer prices are going through the roof right now. And he said that there are now people who have been conventionally farming for years that are turning to organic methods simply because they cannot afford the synthetic fertilizers because they're so much more expensive. But yard waste, people have. So we're using these 5-gallon buckets to measure.
No.
So, Phil, would you call this a green or a brown?
That's a green.
Because it's still living, huh?
high nitrogen.
Do you need help?
I know how to get out.
Okay.
I think I can do it on my own.
So we're measuring with these 5-gallon buckets, and you can use anything. You just want to keep it the same. But that's what I'm saying. You can use anything to measure, just use it the same because you're measuring in parts. It's not really like that you need a 5-gallon bucket. It's just you're measuring in parts. So there's 10-part ratios in these piles. So we do 6 parts brown. This is, so here we have 3 buckets of brown in already. It's hay that hasn't been sprayed. We got some hay and straw bales that have not been sprayed with anything. Will was able to find those. And then we also have some wood chips here. That's the other brown we're using. So we're going to put 3 buckets of that in, which is our 6 brown. And then we have 3 green, which is what we just mowed out of the field. And of course there's some diversity here because we have this wild celery and grass. This is of course the stuff that Ezra helps gather up. So that was great out there, Ez.
Yeah.
So here's the other browns coming in.
What up, Ben?
Hey, Ben.
I did something. I mowed that grass.
So each layer we put in like the hay. When we put the grass in, we want to fluff it up good. When we put this stuff in, we want to make sure it's nice and level and flattened out. And then we're watering it down in between each layer. All right, Phil. So for the person with a backyard farm, like a garden in their backyard, they might not have a farm. I mean, obviously, we have no shortage of components for a compost pile here. What would be examples of browns, greens, and high nitrogen for the average neighborhood gardener?
Yeah, so an easy way to start collecting all the things you need is to you know, just go throughout your neighborhood and find neighbors that don't put pesticides on their yards and collect their leaves. That's just a great brown. If it fell from the tree during the fall, it's going to be a good brown. If you're pulling leaves off of a tree and they're green, they're going to have still a good percentage nitrogen. But if you're looking for a good brown carbon, leaves, wood chips can pretty easily be gotten from local municipal, city municipal dumps. And if you just go and find your local wood chipper and tree company, usually they give them away because they have to pay $120 to $150 per load to dump them. And so it's just really a part of the fun is taking all of this stuff that people are throwing away and that's waste to them and then turning it into what is in reality the most valuable thing in life, which is soil.
Yeah.
And you know, without soil, there's no human existence.
Right.
But a good green is just all of our kitchen scraps. You know, good green grass. If you have a mower with a bagger, you know, today we've just been driving the lawnmower around and just blowing it all into a center lane and then raking it up. There's huge diversity of grass and weeds here, which is just perfect. You don't have to be afraid to compost weed seeds as long as you bring it to temperature.
Right, because it's going to sterilize
and actually,
seeds.
Yeah, it brings greater diversity to the pile. So the greater the diversity of our browns and greens, and then of course high nitrogen, you know, is just finding someone that raises chickens, and you know, finding someone that you can get manure from. I mean, a gardener or a small farm or a large farm would be glad to let you come and pick up their manure.
Their chicken coop,
So, but you've got to regard that as gold.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, where people have to get to, is where they see all of this waste actually as what's most valuable.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
really
just
good.
what's so important.
Yeah, me and Wes do good at pooper scooping.
We are the poop crew.
Good job, man. Congratulations, poop crew. Hey, don't leave me hanging here, poop crew. I'm poop number 1, though. You're poop number 2. Get it?
We're starting a movement.
A bowel movement. So fun.
All right, so this is our high nitrogen sampling. A variety of manures. You are building a compost pile. Ideally, you want diversity. So if you can get some goat poop, some chicken poop, some cow poop, and mix all of those manures for like a diverse manure sampling, that's beneficial.
This is why we're the poop crew, okay? We got jokes for days.
All right, so 3 brown, which was the straw, 3 brown, which was the wood chip, so 6 brown. And then we're doing 1 bucket of high nitrogen, which is our manure. And then we'll do 3 green. So it's 10 total, 6 brown, 3 green, 1 high nitrogen, and then we just repeat it. And so each one of these is 20 buckets.
The green's turning brown quick.
Yeah, no, Ezra said, what if I'm not fast enough to scoop this while it's still green?
There you go, fill it up. You got $20 from an aunt?
You got $20 from Aunt Sis?
Yeah, because she's your sister.
She's your aunt.
All right, so I'm gonna come down here and show you guys what else is going on right now, because we are knocking it out. I have the easy job at this current moment by carrying the camera, but there's a lot of work that's happening. I do not advise this. I don't even fully approve of it, but you know, sometimes I get overridden. So we did the first half of this video. We were really struggling with the wind and making videos. So Phil just left yesterday. We set up all these compost piles. I showed you guys the ratio. There's a lot to this, and I am learning it myself, so I don't really feel super confident in being like, this is what you should do, because I can't answer your questions. Like, I don't know, I'm really just doing these thermophilic piles for the first time. But I'm going to show you what we're doing. Like Phil said earlier, this is the Dr. Elaine Ingham method of biocomplete thermophilic compost piles. So if you wanted to like dig in for like all the questions answered, that would be where you look. This is a pile we started. It has a lot of pine in it that we're eventually going to use over here on the other side of the driveway, where we're going to be working on this space to put our berry bushes and stuff in, because berry bushes like the pH of pine. These are static piles. So this is more of a hands-off method of composting, these two. And basically what we'll do here, and I'll show you guys as we do this, but basically you kind of like dig into them just a little bit, and you put like your kitchen scraps and you work your way around the pile, and then you go back around the pile, and those take about a year to break down. Here are our biocomplete piles, and we have covered them over the top with the tarp today because it rained and we did not want them to get soaking wet. So you can see there Gotta drain that off. But I'm gonna take the temperature. And I'll tell you, I'm expecting that the temperature on these has probably gone down some. It's still climbing. They had climbed up to between 120 and one had gotten up to I think like 145, but then they had started going down a little bit yesterday as it got really windy, so they dried a little, and then today with all the rain we were expecting the temperature to go down. So this one's sitting at about 85 on this side. So as you can see over there, we set this up on that side of the driveway. So you have to really watch those thermophilic piles because you want to maintain a certain temperature to make sure that you're able to kill like the weed seeds and stuff, but you don't want to pasteurize your soil. You want all of those microbes and all of that life in the soil. That's what we're going for. So we can't let it get so hot that one, it kills the life in the soil, and two, it can even combust. So it takes daily monitoring to do this kind of composting, thermophilic composting, and I'm very excited. It's a learning curve. I'm really thankful we have Will here because he's going to be a big help and helping and making sure that those get well monitored. But today they're doing exactly what Phil said they would do after a rain. Even though we tarped them, we even put layers of cardboard on top just to try to keep as much direct rain off the piles as possible. But it rained hard today. It was coming in sideways, and so they got a lot more wet. And as they begin to dry some, they'll start to heat back up because that stuff will start to react with each other. I feel good about it. I'm really thankful for Phil and Becky Burton for teaching us. And our goal here is that once I have a little bit more of a firm footing, this will be something that I'm more comfortable with teaching you guys. And I know that's their hope in working with us and teaching with us, that eventually we'll be able to get this out even further to the masses. Composting is a really big deal. Soil health is a really big deal, and I want to learn it and understand it enough that I can simplify it. I'm not there yet, but we'll get there. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. I bless you. Until next time.